just higher and more successful peasants, that they weren't particular aristocracy. They didn't have any educational refinement. And I think that idea was extraordinarily good, and we all bought it like mad. The critics didn't like it, or in the audience, but I tell you, it was so provocative. We sold this place out every night they came to see it, either to boo it or to, you know, to watch this new idea. I think now it would be counted quite old-fashioned, but then it was ahead of its time.
The stage surely embraced William Hutt and Martha Henry in The Tempest, as well as Christopher Plummer as the flamboyant, romantic, heroic Cyrano de Bergerac.
I thought, no, this play isn't going to work in 1962. It is so old-fashioned and melodramatic, and how are we going to make the audience swallow this? Oh, boy, was I wrong. I mean, Edmond Rostand was a master at knowing his theater. I don't think he knew how to weave a theatrical piece better than anybody. I mean, it was just tailor-made. And I think anybody can act, who's at all good or decent or knows his craft, can play Cyrano. It is a gift from the god.
The incredible romance of the whole thing. I mean, and this was Chris. I think Chris at his most wonderful, and his most romantic best. I mean, and when I saw him do Barrymore, it was the same kind of feeling, just a wonderful romantic concept of theater and theatrical people and theatrics. And the whole production of Cyrano was Michael Langham at his choreographic best.
There was one moment in Cyrano that I'll never forget, which was just one moment, but it was a magical moment of when the doors were thrown open at the end of the first act, and Cyrano sees Paris by moonlight. And Chris, at that moment, was utterly breathtaking. What he communicated to us of the vision he saw of Paris was just, one of those moments you think, this is always to be remembered. It's magic.
Yes, but the words, you do rely on the words. They're all there in the words. And I must salute Paddy Crane, who is our marvelous senior fencing master here, because we brought Paddy over from London. When I came that year, that was his first year, and he designed the Macbeth duel, which was quite interesting, and a fabulous duel for Cyrano. And really, Paddy orchestrated that duel to the words, and all his movements he cleverly worked out too. So I give him full credit to that, all that dueling sequence, because he took care of both the text and the swords and orchestrated them together very, very brilliantly.
Do you have a favorite moment in the play? Is it the kiss scene, or is it the final scene?
I think it's the final scene. I always felt that Jose, who was Ferrer, who I admired very much, who was marvelous as Cyrano, except for the death scene, because he decided he would cry at the death scene. I think it's such an emotional scene. It's such a beautifully written scene that I think he was crying because of the scene, not because of Cyrano. But a friend of mine suggested that, but he said, you can't do that when you do that. Please, I mean, it was Jose crying at his own death. So I learned not to do that, because the death is the happiest death in theatrical literature, really. His whole dream and his whole romantic dream and has been affirmed at the end. He's got what he wants. She knows it was him who wrote the love letters. She knows that he loves her, and she sees that. He tells her. And so he dies ecstatically, rather than, which makes it doubly moving, because he dies a happy man.
Plummer's Cyrano de Bergerac was the greatest triumph yet for the Stratford Festival and its permanent indoor theater. But was there still any lingering nostalgia for those early romantic years in the tent?
Really, all we lost was that first fine, careless rapture of adventure, and a kind of small little band of soldiers trying to fight it out against the elements, which gave us an enormous excitement. I think we did, and I think Michael, through this new building, regained that excitement, of course, and he built the company from Tyrone's extraordinary kind of flourish and grandeur, and then he leaves. And it was Michael who had the tough job to keep the standard high and to develop the company. And we were all getting better because of it. We were getting more experience. And he matured it into I say it in a book that I've written somewhere, and he matured this company into a kind of rich Burgundy, where before Guthrie had made it kind of champagne. But now it was a real solid and trustworthy good wine and rich. And I think it was the best 10 years.
Caldwell's Cleopatra had all that she needed except for her Antony. But Christopher Plummer wasn't there at the start of rehearsals, as James Blendick remembers.
I think we started that a bit late because he was filming, I think, Oedipus. I think in Spain or Italy, which Orson Welles had directed. And so he was going to be about 2 or 3 weeks late, I remember. So there was an actor here, you know, since gone, Max Helpin, who was covering Chris in the show, understudying him. So he and Zoe worked together until Chris arrived. And of course, when we saw Zoe starting to rehearse, I mean, I was just floored by this. I mean, she's not a large woman, as you know, but this power and excitement and presence and voice, you know, was just staggering, the talent. And so right from the get-go, you thought, oh, this is hot. This is hot. And then finally Chris arrived. Well, it got hotter and hotter and hotter. It was a fabulous experience. They both were just magnificent.
Do you have specific memories of a moment that of Zoe's Cleopatra and of his Antony, things that stick in your head after all these years?
I think the very first time that we saw Chris and Zoe meet, they knew each other, but he'd just come back, as I say, from it was either Italy or Spain, shooting this film. So he was absolutely brown as a bug in terms of being tanned, and he was so fit. Of course, he had to be fit to play Oedipus, and for camera, so he was really fit, you know. Well, he came in, I remember the shirt was unbuttoned down to here, and he had these little loafers on, you know, and designer slacks, you know, and he walked in.
And Chris arrived. And we were all pale, because we'd been rehearsing like mad, and we were all sort of a little, you know, funky. But he came in dressed in white, with brown, wonderful, glorious skin, and was so... and just took me in his arms and took possession of me. So I knew that everything was going to be swell.
Well, it was astounding. I mean, we were all like... they had never done the scene before. You know, and the chemistry was like, bing. It's fantastic. I always remember that.
Oh, my God. Some nights it was like, it was so electrifying. We'd all be standing around backstage watching it from the tunnel or from backstage. If you could feel like Chris was on, and Zoe was practically always in a great emotional state as Cleopatra. When the two of them set off sparks together, particularly in the death scene, it was magnificent. It was, you know, the whole theater was alive with the fire of these two performers. And I remember as Octavius, I would go and watch Zoe when she talked about the death of Antony. She has this, you know, fabulous speech, and I almost miss my entrance sometimes. I couldn't go on because I was so glued to what she was doing. Yet I was supposed to come on and take her captive, you know. She was captivating me. It was a fantastic experience doing that play. It was just amazing.
And Shakespeare certainly had an instinct to make her a kind of frantic beast. And here we had a Tasmanian devil, Zoe Caldwell, playing the part. They were made for each other. Her grief over the death of Antony was unbelievable. She had such wonderful vocal power. She keened. I mean, she could have come from any wild European country, you know. There was nothing Anglo-Saxon about her performance.
I remember dying in her arms as Antony and hearing her sort of do that wonderful keen to her handmaidens about the soldier's pole has fallen. There is nothing left remarkable under the visiting moon. And every night she hit a tone, and when she said those words, that sent shivers straight down my spine. It was absolutely, as I said in one speech I made in New York about her, I could have gladly died again and again just to hear her say that extraordinary speech at the end, which really was, I thought, a great moment in the theater. And there aren't that many, but that's one of them.
Caldwell's Cleopatra will be remembered as one of the great performances in Stratford's history for the overwhelming emotion that she and Plummer generated on stage.
We weren't called upon to be cerebral. We were called upon to be two massive historical characters that only Shakespeare could have turned into a play. Two great, great leaders who made endless dumb moves like a lot of our great leaders. And the tragedy at the end, of course, is our tragedy, not theirs, because the world has those two gaps